Mr. Marvin Rees, the Mayor of Bristol.
Right, thank you very much. So I hope I can do the invitation justice tonight. Anything I don't touch on, and we got a bit of a Q&A at the end, so you can pick up any issues with me there. Just reflecting before I start, actually, you talk about the importance of local government. I haven't actually gone out of my way to talk about what we've done in response to COVID, the hunger programs and the social isolation efforts, the additional mental health, because in many ways, many of you will know, it's just what we do. It's just more of what we do anyway, just with a bit more, a bit more effort. It's certainly driven local partnership working. But I'll talk about my mayoralty, talk about our relationship with national government, and then I'll look at some international. But first off, to thank you all, and thank you to Creators for inviting me to today's lecture. And it is very special, as you said, to be here in person as well, to meet real people after all this time. It's a huge honour, but it is also a massive challenge to follow Lord Heseltine and Kerslake. I talked to my wife about this. I was thinking it's fantastic, but I need to try and do them justice. And I have been reflecting on the legacies of everyone we've mentioned. For Joseph Chamberlain himself, Mayor of Birmingham, just 3 years. My first term was 5 years. And in that time, he's remembered for delivering so much. And many of his social reforms have been realised, revised and refined in the almost 200 years since his birth. Chamberlain's ideas of a proactive state on critical issues, from universal education to old age pensions, are understood to have helped inspire the seminal Beveridge Cradle to Grave report in the following century. And I certainly appreciate that proactivity. It's not an argument for big or small state. It's proactive in a state that's big enough to get done what it needs to get done. Michael Heseltine has been a unique voice in Westminster politics, one that recognised the need to, and importantly, actually sought to proactively invest in and share power with local authorities and cities. I said a real unique approach to Westminster politics. And on Bob, while I did not know Joseph Chamberlain, obviously, and I do not know Michael Heseltine, I have got to know Bob Kerslake, and he's been a real personal support to me, actually, from the very time I was elected as a first-time politician. And his UK 2070 commission, really offers a contribution to our understanding of the regional inequalities across the UK, and importantly, what we need to start doing to tackle them. And that's not just an issue of fairness, it's in our self-interest, because those inequalities rob us of talent. They rob us of the ability to realise talents that we all desperately need right now. So I hope to pick up on many of those themes during the course of this talk and the discussion that follows. I'll share some of the experiences and insights that we've had, and I do always say we, because being a mayor is not just about one person, it is my team and I, and how we've developed in the role in our effort to try and offer good leadership and work with government. And I'll also share how we have grown into the necessity of city leaders connecting with other city leaders, both nationally and internationally, to influence national and international policy and events. But I thought I'd start by answering a question that was asked in a recent Creators discussion with Lord Heseltine. And I just watched it earlier this week. And the question was, what is it like to be a mayor? So I thought I'd just give you a bit of a snapshot over my last few days, talk about the variety of my job. So on Friday, I spent an hour and a half with prefects at a local state school talking about life and aspiration. Yesterday, I started the day discussing my cabinet appointments. Someone's just moved on, so we're bringing new people into the cabinet, before having a prolonged discussion about how we're going to manage our relationship with our combined authority. As I left the office, so this is fresh off the press, as I left the office yesterday evening, I confronted a guy who was weeing on the side of City Hall. And as I confronted him, an old school friend of mine came over and joined in and took umbrage to the way the weeer had responded to my challenge. Enough said about that probably for the moment. Last week I was on a call with fellow mayors from the Mayors Migration Council, from around the world, planning our collective approach to the current migration crisis and the increase in likelihood of shocks in the future that will lead to more crises in that future. This morning I recorded a panel discussion with Professor Greg Clark, known to you, many for you as chair of UK Catapult, but now is chair of the UK Cities Climate Investment Commission, and Alice Charles of the World Economic Forum on the question of how do cities finance the transformative work they want to do. And this evening I've come up to spend time with you. Now, mayors are part of that small number of politicians who have to be 100% focused on actually getting stuff done, not just talking about stuff. Not that talking about stuff isn't important, we've got to get our ideas together, but it ultimately is all about seeing stuff happen and seeing lives changed. As one former governor of New Jersey put it, there are no opposition mayors. There's no such thing as shadows in local government. Great speeches or clever questions don't solve one problem for one person. As a mayor, you're expected to plough the snow to get the schools open. Great legislators can be consigned to opposition for their entire time in office. But as a directly elected mayor, there is no break from responsibility, no break from visibility, no break from delivery. The reason the job exists, particularly for a city like Bristol, which was in 2012 the only city to vote yes to having a directly elected mayor, is simple. It is to get stuff done, and as my Twitter feed will show you, to get stuff done yesterday. It is relentless. Just after I was elected, I was in New York and I visited with Michael Berkowitz, who's the head of the Rockefeller 100 Resilient Cities and who had worked as a leading member of Michael Bloomberg's mayoral team. And I was in that imposter syndrome phase of my own mayoralty. Did they really vote for me? Should I be here? Someone else should be doing it. And I was looking for anchors and certainty to guide me through that time. Michael said to me over lunch, he said that the first year that they were in power was like having their mouths around fire hydrants. It just didn't stop. And that gave me some peace. If Bloomberg can feel that, if someone like Michael Bloomberg can feel that, then all I was experiencing as a brand new mayor and my team were experiencing was quite natural. And I think it's one of the reasons why Bloomberg has gone on to launch the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative, because, as he said, there is no natural preparation for being a mayor, for being a city leader. One of the points we often make about mayoral leadership, city leadership, also is that it's complex. Before I was elected, after I'd lost the election in 2012, actually, I was talking to Steve Bullock, the former mayor of Lewisham, and he shared with me a bit about his experience. And he told me of going into his office as mayor on the first day and having all these metaphorical levers presented to him. And these were supposed to be the levers of change. But he shared with me that as he began pulling on them, he found that they weren't actually connected to anything. What he needed to do was build a team, a collection of systems and a culture that would connect his leadership to the physical, social, political, and economic forces in the borough that would ultimately improve the outcomes for its citizens. And we've taken this to heart in our approach to city leadership. We've had to take the local authority itself into hand, of course. We commissioned Steve Bundred, the former chief executive of the Audit Commission, to undertake a review of Bristol City Council when we came into office, following discovery of some major financial challenges. In his findings, he described an organisation with a failure of collective leadership, where the governance was not up to standard, finance needed urgent attention, and with a culture that was hierarchical and bullying. And we had to deal with that. But as essential as it was, we were also clear that our challenge was not just to sort out the council. We developed our understanding of Bristol as a collective endeavour, and one in which the mayoral mandate was to lead the city, not just the council. We developed an understanding that what people get from Bristol is not the result of decisions made by any single organisation. You don't pull a lever in an education department or a school and get a straight line of sight to an educational outcome or a life outcome. Rather, people sit at the intersection of a vast spectrum of organisations making and ducking decisions. To illustrate the point, and I had my young boy at his athletics class, a parent who happened to be a head teacher, was talking to me on the side of the track and said to me, if he could make one intervention for education in Bristol, he would simply make sure that every child in the city had a kitchen table. He didn't talk about our Director of Education or the education system itself. He talked about the children's wider lives. And I took that as meaning a home, a space to do work, a place for families to come together, and a home in which there was enough food to eat. And this complexity of how we get good outcomes for people also speaks to our interdependence, that no single city organisation or sector can flourish alone. Before I was elected, I wrote to our local enterprise partnership because it had a strategy that stressed economic growth and stressed skills. But the point I made was nowhere in that strategy did it talk about health. And I suggested to them that health was not just an issue for the NHS, because all the skills in the world are no good if people are at home with back pain and depression. And I asked them to reflect on a question. And the question was, what would it mean to the West of England economy if we were able to say we had the most well workforce in Europe with the fewest numbers of days of absenteeism? I asked them to think in turn about health outcomes being dependent on the start that children get in life, the Michael Marmot work, the quality of homes, the quality of parental employment, access to good quality food early in life, good quality extracurricular activities. The point we were making was the social is the economic, is the health, is the political. Through the mayoral mandate, we've sought to find a way of leading that works with this interdependence across the wider determinants of city outcomes, rather than leading in line with government finance, cabinet delegations, and the way public services are organised. We've tried to lead, offering clarity with that complexity. In 2017, I convened our first ever city gathering. The idea was to bring together those people in the city who shaped big budgets and had reach into people's lives, either through their services or through the number of employees they had. 70 to 75 people turned up from the health sector, private sector, business, further and higher education, schools, voluntary community and faith sectors, and our trade unions. My office did a back-of-the-envelope calculation, and it was truly back of the envelope, about who was there. And they suggested that there was about a £6 billion footprint in the room, and between us we employed 70,000 people. So in the gathering, we talked about the expertise that was in the room, the size, what was actually represented by those leaders there. We talked about our interdependencies, how we get good outcomes for people in Bristol. And it came to the end, and I fed back about the power that was in the room. And I asked them a question. If we all, on that morning, agreed to focus our collective efforts on a small number of shared priorities, what could we not do? And it's about getting us all those place shapers in a single place to think about that overarching outcome that we're trying to get for Bristol, and then beginning to bend our spend, look at the way we practice to deliver that, be it child hunger, domestic violence, period poverty, education outcomes, reduction of school exclusions, house building. Even if people don't have a direct line of sight to the actual delivery, they can help create the conditions in which success is more rather than less likely. It's this process, this event that launched our One City plan. That's now a big part of our city governance. It's not owned by the council, it's a city plan that's shaped by all the city partners. It sets out what we want Bristol to be in 2050, which is a very explicit question we asked. And then we've worked hard to work out the sequence of annual goals and outcomes we need to deliver every year up to 2050 to become that city we want to be. And those city gatherings have really become a core part of the way we do business in Bristol, a part of our city rhythm. They happen every 6 months and are now attended by about 500 people from all sectors, and people from outside of Bristol, investors, charities, come to be part of that city gathering, that city conversation about what we're trying to get done, how we are or are not sometimes being successful in making progress towards delivering on those outcomes. A former Chief Constable, Andy Marsh, who I would say is an outstanding Chief Constable, actually, he's now at the police college, said to me over dinner one evening that world-class public sector leadership is not about what you control, it's about what you influence. We've really tried to pursue that line of journey in a city and what we've come to describe as a movement from city government to city governance, with city government being a disproportionate focus on the local authority and city governance recognizing those multiple sources of sovereignty and influence in a city and how we begin to get them to align in an incredibly dynamic way. Another feature of this complexity in city leadership is the tendency for cities or the practice of cities of being contradictory. Mayors have to navigate and resist the temptation to indulge or be forced into oversimplification. Now, if I go back to the hauling down of the Colston statue in Bristol in June 2020, it's an example of why this is so important. In the aftermath of the statue, I was challenged, everyone wanted to challenge me, I was challenged to condemn the Black Lives Matter protests and the people who pulled the statue down. I was challenged to condemn the way the police handled the situation. Some saying they were too intrusive, some saying they did not enforce law and order. I was challenged to condemn the football lads who organised a rally to protect the nearby cenotaph the following week. And I was even challenged by, and it was 50 white people outside City Hall, I was challenged as the mayor of the city to apologise for Bristol's historical role in the transatlantic slave trade. So the challenges come from all angles, sometimes with less awareness where it would be desirable. My response to the Colston statue was kind of well documented at the time, but I'll tell you about something that's less well known and how in the challenge of holding the city together. And it's the visit I made actually to the football lad who would organise the Cenotaph rally. Now he had called both Bristol's football firms and the firms of surrounding towns and cities to Bristol to protect the Cenotaph they thought was going to get damaged. He'd also phoned up the Hells Angels, who turned up. So you're talking of a guy that's connected, all right? They came out the next weekend, they surrounded the Cenotaph, anti-racism protesters turned up, there was a standoff, we were concerned about the potential for violence. A number of people were describing it as a far-right rally. But my cousin's actually a football lad, and I phoned him up, and he knew the guy that organised it. And we ended up talking. Long story short, my chief of staff and I went to meet him. And my priority at that time was to hold the city together. It was a tense time. It's easy to forget, but it was tense, right? It was real potential of violence. And I wanted to understand him, and I wanted to understand the guys that he had rallied to the Cenotaph. Now, in the lead-up, he stressed to me repeatedly that he was not a racist. He stressed that he was not far-right and that the rally wasn't a far-right rally, despite the labels being put on it. And he was very angry about the journalists. We talked about motivation. He didn't like Antifa. But interestingly, when we were together, he mostly talked about the working class, jobs, and housing. And I asked him what was happening for the guys who turned up. I said, what's going on for them in their lives? And he said to me, Marv, they feel like they're losing their city. And I said, they are losing their city, but they're not losing it to migrants, they're losing it to house prices. And actually, we began talking about our house building policy in Bristol, which was receiving a lot of support, the delivery of house, protecting people in the private rental sector. And it just how it finished off, we were talking, and his wife came in to give me a cup of tea. And she was a black woman. And I'd heard of a guy down at the rally who people were calling a racist, who'd said, don't tell my wife, she won't be happy. And this was the man. And the point I've made often, the world can be much more complicated and contradictory than it would seem. And as a mayor, it was my job to really reach out and try and hold us together. As I was leaving, actually, he pulled out his phone, considering all the branding that had been put on this event. He pulled out his phone, he said, I want to show you something. And he handed his phone over to me, and it was a picture of me and his wife. just after I was elected in 2016. So he'd had this on his phone for 4 years. And I've shared that a number of times just to say we have to avoid simplistic categorization, and that is the kind of so much of the grit of leading a city. The last thing I'll just share on terms of reflecting on what it's like to be a mayor is on the very kind of question of democracy. Now, I'm doing quite well at the moment in accumulating the number of dictators I've been compared to in Bristol. I've been likened to another Joseph Stalin. I've been likened to Kim Jong-un. Pol Pot has appeared. One local campaigner, a Labour Party member, said I was behaving like a member of the Ku Klux Klan. She was actually a white American, so I reminded her of the fact. And last year, an opposition councillor warned council officers and Labour Party councillors that I was simply following orders defence would not protect them when they were held to account. Now, I don't think this is necessarily bad company. Well, not the dictators, but Chamberlain himself was likened to, was called a monopolizer and a dictator as well. So I guess it comes with the territory. But the truth about that question of democracy is that the mayoral model offers a visibility of leadership, but is actually critical to democratic accountability. Rather than taking the cover of an anonymous group in a committee room, which is what's happened, making non-decisions, the mayor is responsible, even if sometimes unfairly so. Journalists interrogate me, campaigners target me, the public ask of me. Some say they're concerned about the concentration of executive power in the mayor's hands. But here's my reflection on that. First, as I've shared at the beginning, it's just not true that a mayor has absolute power. I don't control the National Health Service. Our universities are small towns in Bristol with upward of over 50,000 students in a population of 465,000 people. We have our business sector I don't control. So we are one of a number of place-shaping organisations with a degree of sovereignty in the city. The mayoral power can be used to convene and ask. I talked about the city gathering at the beginning. So it's not just about the level of power you have, it's what you do with it. And I think we've pulled people together to work together and to challenge ourselves on how we work more effectively together. But third, the level of accountability that comes with the mayoral profile must bring with it the power, or else the mayor will be unfairly held accountable for decisions they did not make, while those people who are actually making decisions or not making decisions in anonymous rooms are able to hide behind the cover of a mayor that is being held accountable for things they're not doing, which is actually an undermining of democracy. So I'll talk just a little bit now about the relationship with national government. Previous creators conversations have touched on the limitations of national government in general and the dysfunctionality of its relationship with local government and cities in particular. And I will share that as a first-time politician, I've actually been quite shocked at the ability of national government to add uncertainty to an already complex and uncertain world. And it seems to be done with much more confidence than self-awareness. The UK is one of the most heavily centralised countries in Europe, if not the world. In 1970, 60% of local government cash was determined by central government, and by the mid-2000s, despite devolution to Belfast, Cardiff and Edinburgh, as well as to the Mayor of London, this figure had risen to 85%. In 2016, the year I took office, 91 pence out of every pound of taxation was controlled by the Treasury. We urgently need a new sovereignty settlement across the UK in general, and for cities in particular. Government structures will never be the top of the national agenda, but local authorities and cities know and say often that we have untapped potential. Work with us, agree the vision with us, plan with us how to achieve it, develop a line of predictable finance to underpin the delivery of those plans, then we can realise that potential to ensure we have a post-COVID recovery, one that is inclusive, decarbonised and resilient. We've got to, but before we do, alongside that I should say, we have to get the basics right. Let me share with you that in 2017, I opened our local newspaper and the headline was, Bristol's still in the dark over rail electrification as government cancels upgrade plans in South Wales. In the article, it said the DfT have already placed a pause on electrification between Bristol and Bath, as well as between Bristol, Temple Meads and Parkway stations, as it looked to tackle the ballooning £2.8 billion costs. I hadn't had a call. The article went on to say that ministers had been hinting at the possibility of the electrification not being put in place, but no one had told me. I can't work with hints. You can't plan with hints. A fundamental piece of our local and our national infrastructure. We find out about it at local government in the newspaper. In 2019, I stood on the government stage at MIPIM, an international investment conference, to talk about our Temple Quarter regeneration opportunity. 11,000 homes, 22,000 jobs, £1.6 billion a year to our economy. It was introduced as one of the most exciting regeneration opportunities in Europe. Despite the universal approval and support from the highest levels of government, we've not been able to get someone somewhere in government to send the email releasing the money needed for the renovation of Temple Meads to keep that scheme going. That uncertainty makes us as local government a less predictable partner for others. The University of Bristol are building a £300 million campus, and L&G are investing £350 million in Temple Island, right next to the station. That whole development comes through together. And we've been waiting 3 years to get someone somewhere just to confirm the business, to confirm the validity of the case everyone says is the one that needs to happen. We've kept things going, but the uncertainty has not been helpful. Of course, we now have levelling up, build back better, and devolution. How much time, though, have local authorities now spent moving between trying to work out what those phrases mean, trying to influence what they mean, and trying to position themselves to be on the receiving end of any spending that might occur when someone somewhere locks down what they mean? That has not been a good use of our time. Now, I won't pretend that Michael Gove and I share a completed worldview, but where we will come together, I hope, is on the need to actually get things done. Mayors, as Michael Bloomberg emphasises, must be pragmatic. My hope is that the new Secretary of State grabs this uncertainty, this opportunity for reform by the scruff of the neck. And better still, that he works with the core cities, the LGA City Regions Board, the M9, and the regional powerhouses to agree definitions, vision, and set a plan. But let me echo the challenge I gave to my own city, to government, and to all of us in local government also. What could we not do if we agreed and aligned our priorities across all our spheres of government? But key to unlocking this alignment will be overcoming the current model of funding for council that is too often to a game of scrambles. So in my school, which wasn't the best kind of school, when a kid had one sweet left and 8 kids wanted it, rather than making a decision, they might throw it in the air and shout scrambles. Then we'd all fight for it. No rules, finger stamping allowed, survival of the fittest. Government seemed to do the same. There was recently an initiative against child hunger. Government put up a few £1 million and asked us all to get in the mix for it. Bristol came away, or at least our children did, with nothing. We worked with our business community to raise the money anyway, but we got nothing. We had our finger stamped on. We lost out at scrambles. But even if we had been successful, I wouldn't have been satisfied, because we'd have got that resource for Bristol's children at the expense of children in Plymouth. That's not a plan. That way of funding is not a strategy. It's not leadership. We need a new way of national government working with local government that is all about win-win. And too often that funding is short-term and broken up between government departments who do not seem connected. It's down to local government with limited resources to fight for resources and play outside half to a national machine that feels like a collection of disconnected pots of money bolted together. We are additionally vulnerable to this because UK cities have no way of directly raising revenue other than the centrally controlled council tax. In his day, Joseph Chamberlain didn't wait for national government. When elected mayor of Birmingham, he quickly took control of the utilities and waterworks to improve health, environment, and public services. And along with the wider social reform agenda, He took hold of his city and set about making change, improving the quality of life. And today, our cities are not waiting on government. Of course, we need our national government, and we will be less than we could be if we fail to organise and get alignment between national and local government. But we are not making national government enlightenment a prerequisite to our own action. We have the M9. 2 weeks ago, I was at the UK Core Cities Annual Away Day. We're working on a national offer to government on housing. We want to take a solutions-focused approach where we all want to get homes built. So the question to government is, how do we get alignment around getting those homes built? It's a solutions-focused approach I want to take into my new role as chair of the LGA City Regions Board. Things can work well. In 2019, Bristol, Newport and Cardiff convened local authorities to form the basis of the Western Gateway. We now stretch this new economic patch from Swindon to Swansea, Gloucester to North Somerset, with the core cities of Bristol and Cardiff at the centre. We are the new powerhouse, a functional economic area, 4.4 million people that now sits alongside the Northern Powerhouse and Midlands Engine. We're working out how we can work together, a bottom-up piece of organisation, how we can work together to advance our shared interest across national boundaries and across party and local authority boundaries. But a glimmer of light from this was that government did come forward to back it. A locally organic driven piece of organisation, Sajid Javid and Alan Cairns, were central to the launch, wanting their quotes all over the press, and we welcome that. It felt and it feels like we're approaching something of the kind of partnership we need. Listen to what's needed out there and work with it and back it. Money was put into the Secretariat, and we're now working on our economic strategy. And I should mention, it was one of the initiatives that Lord Kerslake was so helpful in getting off the ground. The Prime Minister has emphasised the role of local leadership as part of levelling up. I would say that we accept the invitation. My advice is ensure cabinet members meet regularly with the core cities and the M9. Ensure the LGA annual conference is anchored into the Prime Minister's annual calendar, and cabinet members build strong relationships with the relevant LGA boards. Meet with the powerhouses on a regular basis. The opportunity for national alignment is there. We need to take it. But I want to just finish off with some international reflections, because the importance of local and city leadership is not limited to local and national politics. Global governance, with its over-reliance on national governments, is becoming increasingly threadbare. Many of us know it to be true. At the Global Parliament and Mayors in Durban in 2019, Ed Johnson, the former mayor of Asbury Park, said to me, "We have the best form of global governance the 1960s could ask for. The problem is, it's 2019. The COP26 climate conference in November threatens to further expose this. My fear is that national governments will remain unable to move beyond high-profile headline commitments to tackle the climate and ecological emergencies and get to a clear, measurable plans with proper funding and a clear timeline for delivery. Cities consume 70% of energy and generate 3/4 of global carbon emissions. These figures are only going to increase as cities grow, with estimates being that 68% of people will live in urban areas by 2050. And it's in cities where most people will be affected by climate change, as heat waves threaten residents in city centres and rising sea levels and extreme rainstorms cause flash flooding. At the same time, compact cities can offer more sustainable, more efficient lifestyles. Higher density living can reduce the carbon footprint of residents. A recent paper from the World Bank, Pancakes to Pyramids, sets out how we could plan to build in and up rather than sprawling out. So surely cities would and should be central to any coherent conversation and strategy on how we are going to decarbonise a future with a growing global population. ICLE, however, which is a global network of 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development, normally have over 150 passes to COP. So far, they've had 20. This challenge cannot be taken on without the active and proactive participation of cities. As environmentalists and politicians race each other to declare the earliest target for carbon neutrality, we are all only just starting to understand the cost and the challenges of meeting this ambition. And that's where city leaders can be so crucial. We know about the projects that are needed, but we also know about the social conditions that are needed to support the just transition that will maintain the democratic mandate needed to deliver the scale of change at the pace it's needed. We need to deliver it. Bristol is a member of the UK Core Cities, a network of Britain's 11 largest urban areas. Collectively, across our urban areas, we account for 20 million people and 26% of national output. Yet, there has been no government effort to convene us to devise a coherent plan for decarbonisation, which is a recipe for underperformance at the very moment humanity has no room for error. And it's a mistake that is repeated time and time again. From migration to urban security to pandemics, cities are not being included in the conversations where we're looking for solutions. And solutions are out of reach of national governments working alone. And I actually believe that city governance could be one of the most effective levels of political leadership, one of the most effective political vehicles to cope in a world in which so many of the challenges are becoming post-national. In Bristol, we've seen how the pandemic policy translates from sterile parliamentary debate into the reality of people's lives in homes and schools and workplaces. And we know firsthand the impact of Brexit on our food supply and our care system. But again, we aren't waiting. Cities are organising. There are over 300 international city networks in the world at this time. Some geographically organised, such as the Core Cities, Eurocities, and the US Conference of Mayors. Some organised around common issues, such as the Mayors Migration Council, or C40. Others on the Global Parliament of Mayors are trying to strengthen the role in international governance structures. In 2018, I spoke at the United Nations during the final negotiations of its Global Compact on Migration, the first mayor to be invited to speak, and I argued that cities should be given a stronger, more formal role in setting migration policy. Most migrants leave cities, transit through them, travel to them, and return to them, including Bristol. And as with climate, cities can provide expert leadership on finding the best solutions. The UN Compact had direct consequences for the lives of Bristol people, many of whom, like me, are first or second generation migrants. When I was elected in 2016, I did not anticipate how central international leadership would be to my mayoralty. But it's a natural extension of the argument for the devolution of more powers we have all been making at local government level. It's not enough to be able to shape what happens inside the city boundaries. Serving Bristol means taking account of and helping to shape the national and international context and forces that affect life within the city. None of this is a wish for or a prediction of the demise of national governments. Rather, it's an argument for the missing piece of the puzzle in national and international governance. National governments will need to make space, and international organisations need to redirect much of their energy and finance to and through cities. My colleague on the World Economic Forum's network of global future councils, the scholar and writer Greg Clark, says we are living in the 5th decade of the century of the city. It's of critical importance for all our sakes that national and international governance catches up with that fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. That was truly brilliant. Are we thoughtful of questions that we want to ask? Looking around. Hannah. Got a microphone coming to you, Hannah.
Do I need a microphone? Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm Hannah David from Planning Futures. Thank you very much. That was actually really interesting, and thank you for covering so many areas. If I could pick up on your powers and devolution and the unequal powers of city mayors across England, how do your powers compare to those, for example, of Andy Burnham in Manchester? Yeah. And do you think you should have or need more?
So what's up? I'm a different kind of mayor to Andy, you see. So he's combined authority mayor, along with Andy Street and I guess Sadiq's in that they're part of the M9, whereas I'm obviously just one local authority, Bristol. So it is a different level. That combined authority mayoral role, while I convene the city, I guess their role in that sense is to have the power and the scope to be able to convene and to work with the constituent authorities, and that's a key word, work with, to build that plan across the whole region. In terms of me and my specific powers, I was just reading a book on the way here, and one of the things it said about mayors is, there's the position and there's your ability to occupy it and play it, and much of the mayoral influence, I said, do we want more control over finance for local government? Yes, right? We would. Part of that is about having more predictable finance. So one of the biggest underminers of our ability to plan, which in and of itself leads to greater authority and leadership ability, is the unpredictability of government finance. It's a pot here, it's a pot there, it's a year, it's 2 years. It doesn't help us build that authority, which is an authority you can have without institutional power, which I think is the most important kind. I think I'd be wary about saying I want power over other aspects of our partners, like the health service and so forth. But what I think could happen is that the government departments that they're accountable to, like Department of Health, make sure that those organisations are much more accountable to the local place. So rather than a direct line of coming up to London every few months and accounting to a senior civil servant, a government minister, that should be driven down to accountability to the place in which people operate. Not directly to me, but as we've tried to set up that city governance to the actual place, I think that would really focus minds on getting local outcomes.
Any more questions?
Thanks, Rob. I'm Vicky Slade. I work for Kratos. I'm the net zero lead for Kratos, but I'm also on the LGA board of Environment, Economy, Housing and Transport. You mentioned COP26. We've been doing our own research that shows that hardly any councils are directly engaged with COP26, haven't been invited to attend, or aren't planning to attend. And you mentioned that the core cities haven't really been overly engaged. What are your concerns about the impact of COP26 on local government in terms of top-down decision-making that local government is expected to respond to?
So I would be careful in my phrase. We are core cities, all are absolutely committed to engagement on COP. The point is there's been no engagement from government on it. So, I mean, look, what's the first thing you do, right? If you want to decarbonise your national economy, the first thing you do is you say, where are all my levers of connectivity, right? You'd say to the M9, long time out, hey, how can we decarbonise your combined authority areas, your function? You'd say to your powerhouses, how can we decarbonise your economic footprints? Ours is 4.4 million Western Gateway. That's a big area we could be working on. You'd say to core cities, what can we do with you? You'd attend LGA. It's not hard, just to pull people together and have those conversations, begin to develop a plan. Then you go into COP with something as of substance, right? You've done the pre-work, the groundwork, you've heard about how it gets done, you've anticipated the unintended consequences, and you've put a price tag up against it, right? That's not been done. And that's my concern. So what it will become a competition for declarations, and we'll all watch on and say, well, what does that mean? Meanwhile, we'll be going out and trying to get in grants of £400,000 here for an EV scheme, £3 million there for a bit of retrofit, disconnected, no coordination, no rollout, no planned rollout, and that's going to be a massive problem for us.
Yes, Vicky's got one more question.
I just want to come back on that, Marvin, because I completely agree with you. As a former council leader myself, I know where you're coming from. We are hosting a member of the Cabinet Office next week for exactly this conversation. What would you like our message to be to him in terms of the last 4 weeks that he's got to engage with local leaders?
Just get on the phone, Nick Forbes, convene core cities, and we'll talk to you about housing delivery. I think the kind of homes we build and where we build them will be one of the biggest determinants of future energy consumption, won't it? So we're coming up with a housing offer now to government. Talk to us about that. Let's lock it down. Talk to Greg Clark, because we're doing a major piece of work on finance. So again, not waiting on national government, but saying actually one of the biggest challenges on delivering on climate is money. You've got to pay for it. It's not about the T-shirt or how big your banner is, right? It's how do you pay for it. So with Greg Clark and World Economic Forum, we're doing two very significant pieces of work, and it's saying what financial vehicles are out there that could work more effectively with cities. Longer term patient finance, and if the current vehicles cannot be adapted, private money, how can we create new vehicles? And what's the nature of the relationship with government on that? How could government de-risk? How can we get cities to scale as well? That's another part of it, right? So at the city level, we've got to get the expertise and the scale to be able to enter into these markets, because we're being told there is trillions of pounds rolling around the money, looking for places to land, but our local authorities don't have the skill set or the scale necessarily to access that. We've got to make that connection. So they should also talk to Greg Clark about that piece of work on finance, and I think we could take a 100-mile journey down to about 10 miles in time for COP, and they could make some major announcements at COP on deliverable projects, on housing, and how we're going to mobilise the billions of pounds worth needed to pay for it. By the way, I mean, just in terms of cost, Bristol, to decarbonise Bristol is about £10 billion. We've done the numbers, but we don't have the money, obviously.
Mark?
Yeah, Mark Jenkinson. How are you going to, because you mentioned net zero, but no one knows what it means. Yeah. But how are you engaged with the local community to bring them on board?
The local community?
Yes.
So I kind of got two tracks of thought on that, right? One is we clearly have to stay engaged. It's not just we'll tell our story, basically, right? We tell the story through the councillors and through the press and all that, although that's not always easy. Press is not necessarily interested in good stories. They want fights and conflicts, simplicity. But we will tell the story and proactively outreach. And we've done a lot in Bristol also about making sure that the environmental movement and conversation is much more inclusive too. I mean, look, being shouted at by privately educated Russell Group students is a common thing of mine, but with no black or Asian friends, right? So we've worked hard to make sure that we're inclusive, particularly we have climate-driven migrants in the city now. And it's also important because some of the interventions we make are going to change the way people live. So when we pedestrianise the old city and put a bus gate, people have to drive a different way now, or if they drive at all. We have to maintain a democratic mandate to do that. If you don't, people will backlash. And again, bringing people with you, I think could be like globalisation. If we end up disadvantaging working people, they'll end up like the late 90s. This ain't working for me. This globalisation, this decarbonisation ain't working for me. You're making me poorer. I can't eat, can't pay my bills. Stuff it. You get the backlash. So we have to take people with us. At the same time, I don't think you really need to. I don't think it's all about hearts and minds. I think it's about systems. So what we need to do is change the energy system. So you don't flick your light on thinking, oh, I'm using decarbonised energy. You're just turning your light on. You're not getting on the bus thinking, this is an electric bus. You're just getting on the bus. So at the moment, it's very hard to live a low-impact life. Right? You have to be conscious, aware. You have to have a bit of time and probably a bit of disposable income so you can buy the organic carrots rather than the mass-produced, chemicalised carrots. You've got a bit of money, so it's a luxury. What we need to do is make that the norm, so that living a high impact life takes effort. So the norm is it's a collection of low impact systems. That's the point I made about cities can actually be the solution. Unplanned or badly designed cities are going to be a climate liability. We know that. But if we proactively begin to reconceptualize, replan and rebuild our cities so that they are decarbonised, and actually, I would say, if we begin to think of our cities as global assets to cope with the growing global population, and we're going to begin putting people in those cities, because that's the only way we can they can live efficiently, then we have part of a solution. But it's all about those underlying systems that support life in the city, I think, whether people know it or not.
Thank you, Duncan Flynn. also Kratos. Marvin, I'd be interested to get a sense of what did you think of last week's rebranding of the government department formerly known as MHCLG, particularly the deletion of local government from that title?
So, I mean, I have a degree of concern about the deletion of local government, because what we've really needed that we haven't had in national government is a champion of local government. Right? Local government is not a national treasure, is it? Despite the children's mental health, the special education needs, the house building, the adult social care, all is not treasured. And I think when you compare the treatment to the National Health Service, we're always, in the bargain basement, the easy organisation to be hit. And so I'm a bit concerned that the title's been dropped and then, it disappears as a national government consideration. That would be unfortunate and a major problem. Outside of that, we just have to wait and see how it plays itself out. If Michael Gove's reputation as a reformer who probably wants to get stuff done, someone who would have a lot more traction with Treasury than Robert Jenrick did and would have a lot more traction with the Prime Minister, if that proves to be the case, and if he becomes convinced that local government can be a really effective tool in getting that reform, in driving that delivery, then, it doesn't matter what it's called, right? It's what we get. So I think I'll wait and see, really. I mean, if we get these meetings, core cities and all that, then I think we're off to a good start.
Hello, hi. I'm a planning lawyer at Lewis Silkin, and I recently read with interest the appeal decision. You probably thought you were going to get away without a statues question, but I read the Jen Reid appeal decision, which went to Secretary of State and was refused. But I was also curious that there was very little, in fact there was no input from the council at all as to their stance on their application for the Jen Reid statue to stay in place of the Edward Colston statue. And I don't know, you mentioned that there is a difference between the mayor's role for governance of the city as opposed to for representing the council. The council clearly chose to remain neutral and to not open up an opportunity for the community to have a chance to discuss the application at local level, and therefore it went off to Secretary of State. Do you think that was an opportunity missed to have open discussion about something that's very unique to Bristol? Not all cities obviously have the historical connection to the international slave trade, and there was a chance there to have real local engagement with that particular application because of its wider implications. Or do you feel that in fact it was maybe premature? Because I know there's the Bristol History Commission is trying to take a wider perspective on taking things forward, but there's obviously some very individual challenges for your city that other cities don't have.
So, I mean, there's loads in your question, so I'll try and pick my way through it. We've facilitated conversation. That's what the Bristol History Commission is. But I don't comment on everything anyone does, particularly some posh sculptor from London who comes down and tries to tell us what we should do with our public sites and how we should have debates. Let me tell you the story. Maybe that's not good for tweeting, but let me tell you the story of that statue, right? Bristol is a fractured city. I grew up in Bristol the days when people could chase you down the street. Right? This was normal. Physical threat along racial lines was the norm. We're still a city of division and inequality. We've got a great bohemian brand, right? You go around Stokes Croft, it's full of hipsters, vegan cafes and that. But one in 4 of our kids are still in poverty. The tensions are still there, right? And that's one of the things that we've tried to be honest about in leading the city. Add into that a Colston statue, with the statue being pulled down. Tensions all over the place, right? What do we need off the back of that? We need some space to think. We need a valve. That's not quelling the debate. It's not squashing the debate. It's about making sure the debate is held with more light than heat. And, you know, there can be emotions, but it needs to be intelligence, right? So we need to manage that situations. Then I get a call. Marvin, some sculptor, I don't know who the sculptor is, it's not my world, right? Some guy is really well known, wants to put up a sculpture. So I'm on the phone with him. He said, I got a sculpture. I said, it's a really nice idea, right? But now is not the time. If you put that sculpture up there now, you're putting it, it's going to be incendiary, right? What will happen is all those people who, for whatever reason, those people that feel they're losing their city, right, will say, well, that's confirmation, right? Colston, for ill, he was a slaver, right? But the branding of Colston is of he done all these things for people. You're gonna tell those people even more that they ain't got a part in their city, right? Because we've just come in. And there's another dynamic around this. I'm the first black mayor, right? So what am I then known for, right? I got to be additionally careful on this. There's a lot that, you know, the privilege of whiteness in that sense is to be maybe move more critically of the old establishment. I have to be a bit more careful on those things before I pick up branding that undermines my ability to deliver on some of the more substantial issues that underpin race inequality and class inequality in the city. So we're on the phone. I said, now's not the time. I said, I know you, he says, I want to provoke a debate. I said, that's great. Well, to you, in London, over a glass of wine and a block of cheese, it's a debate. To an isolated family on a housing estate, local people turn up and say, I'm losing my city, I'm going to put poo through your door, I'm going to smash your window. So we're managing that. A couple of weeks later, I'm walking to work, I get a text, he's put a statue up. How does he get to put the statue up? Because he got a ton of money. The initial Colston statue went up, not because the people paid for it, but because a rich individual with rich friends put the statue up. And we said, we're not going to have that again. Anything that goes in those public debates is going to be a result of genuine public conversation. Added to that, I've got a number of considerations. What if those people that feel they're losing their city go into town and drag down a statue of a black woman, haul it through the streets and chuck it in the river? The dynamics around that are very different to a statue of Colston being hauled down. So what's going to blow up then, right, in the middle of, you know, all that tension? So I've got an outsider who's nothing about our city. I think, you know, yes, let me put it frank, Bristol's a stage right now, right? I talked to about 300 million people in interviews off the back of the statue. So it's a fantastic stage for your work. But you've come in and you've done something without any regard to the local dynamics and sensitivities that are at play. What we've done with the History Commission is pull together a group of expert, genuine historians, right? They are historians, you know, along with people from the culture world, to say, okay, well, let's tell the full story of Bristol. We'll tell the story of black people, Asian people, migrants, women, disabled people, working class people, the history of workers. And rather than saying to the city, that's going to be your statue, why don't we say, okay, here's a fuller understanding of how Bristol became the way it is. Now compare these new kinds of people you're learning about to Colston. Who would you now want to put on the stage? I heard a guy doing this work in America, and he said to some white Americans, surely you can find a hero who wasn't involved in rape and slavery to celebrate. And that's what we're doing. We're having a genuine city conversation in a cool, you know, in a cool way. So the statue was unwise. I'm not sure it was the ultimate motivation was about public debate, or was it about publicity? And, you know, we've managed a very tense situation. It's difficult to prove what didn't happen. It's difficult to prove you stopped stuff happening. But we did have, interestingly, this is true too, SARI will tell you, the Stand Against Racism and Inequality, who deal with hate crime, that after the statue went up, there was an uptick in hate crimes in the city. So this wasn't, you can't do these public debates in an abstract when you're dealing with the real grit of a city. And that's what really frustrated me about that whole statue incident. I did talk to the statuer, if that's the name, the artist after, and I said, well, if you're serious about race equality as you claim to be, why don't you put some personal money into scholarships for black artists? Yeah. I ain't heard nothing since. So what are you? Are you serious about race and class inequality in the artistic world? Where's the money where the mouth is? Where's all that kind of world come together now? So there's a whole context to that leaves me a little bit short of patience with it, because it ain't a game. It's not a publicity. It's about managing a complex city and trying to do the real work of delivering an inclusive, sustainable city.
Thank you.
Well done.
Marvin, you said that local government isn't cherished. This is the third outing of the Chamberlain Lecture, and you've made a big step forward for us all appreciating the work of local government. I also think you've shown us the real work that is done by a mayor. And I love the concept that it's not about the local government, it's about the whole and bringing it together. I've been at your gatherings. I've seen you in action. I've seen everyone in action. I've also seen people I worked with years ago getting celebrated for their work in the city when they weren't expecting it. Bristol is becoming a real beacon for the way that cities and our communities can be led. And I really want to thank you for taking the time and for everyone here to have the opportunity to have a real insight into what you're doing in Bristol. Thank you to everyone who's come out here tonight, everyone who's online, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, those of you who are catching up late at night, this was a lecture that I hope that you truly enjoyed. Thank you very much, Marvin. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay.